Hello, everyone. My name is Oona Chaplin, and this is EMA Talks, Foundation Spotlight. And I just wanted to say a couple of things about EMA, the Environmental Media Association, and the EMA Talks program. The Environmental Media Association, or EMA, right, is the only organization out there connecting the entertainment world, so like artists and singers and musicians and actors and people, in the entertainment industry with the latest and most crucial issues affecting our planet today. And so EMA Talks is a conversation at the intersection of arts and science. And so this is where entertainers and creatives chat with experts in all sorts of topics that are dedicated to caring for our planet and having a good thought and a good understanding for how to create sustainable life here on this earth, on this magical spaceship Earth. And today we are here with one of my personal heroes, with one of my absolute favorite people in the world, and a really amazing collaborator and just such an amazing teacher, founder of Amazon Watch and the Sacred Headwaters Initiative. And there's just so many projects. So thank you so much, Atossa Soltani, for being with us today. And I'm just so thrilled always to speak with you. You inspire me so much. And I work with the BOA Foundation and with aniwa.com. And so we have a fair amount of crossover, but I just wanted to ask you straight up, because there's so much going on in the Amazon today. So what do you think is the kind of most inspiring and fascinating and pressing issues that you see down there in our beloved rainforest today?
Well, Una, hello. It's so great to be with you today. And I'm a huge fan of yours as well. So thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation together. And so I'm grateful to Emma and Emma Talks as well, longtime collaborator of Amazon Watch. And so I feel very connected to the Amazon rainforest. I've spent the last 30 years being an activist and a forest champion and, forest protector. And, more than ever before, the Amazon rainforest is at the forefront of the debate about a livable world. People have called the Amazon the lungs of the earth and for decades. And more, though, we're hearing how the Amazon is also the heart of our planet. And, and the scientific understanding of how the weather and atmospheric rivers in the Amazon rainforest actually affect weather in North America, even in the moisture content of the Sierra Nevadas. And this science of the Earth system science, looking at the Earth as a living system, is something that's really helping answer the question of why the Amazon is so important for the world. How this large rainforest, the largest rainforest on the planet, which covers 9 countries, how come that rainforest is so important for our planetary stability and our climate? And I'm excited about that. And also the fact is that the situation has never been more urgent before, never been so dire. And so, I'm excited about telling the story of how the heart of the earth, the heart of our living earth, needs to be in all of our hearts. We actually need to recognize that our living earth is a living system. The Amazon rainforest is one of the key vital organs of that living system, and how we all live on this planet in a way, the way we breathe and the rainfall, the agricultural productivity for our areas are all dependent on the vital organs of our living earth. So I've been talking a lot about in this metaphor of the living earth because that's ultimately what we need to start doing, is treating the earth. Ultimately, what we need to do is treat the earth as this living system. So I'll just give you a little bit of the science, just a flavor of the science of.
Please.
Okay, great. So every tree in the Amazon evapotranspires, literally breathes in oxygen, breathes out CO2. Sorry, breathes in CO2. Let me start over. Every tree in the Amazon breathes in CO2 and breathes out oxygen. And together, 400 billion trees in the Amazon rainforest generate something like a flying river bigger than the Amazon River itself. And that flying river, literally, the moisture that each tree emits into the atmosphere together create an atmospheric river. And that atmospheric river brings rain to the entire continent of South America. So most of the rain that falls in South America comes from the Amazon. But then once it hits the Andes, literally the flying rivers head north towards us in North America, where they're really important for spring rains that bring, that are really good for agriculture for the first, planting of the season, first rains of the season. And so we are dependent on that heartbeat, that heart pumping, the biotic pump of the Amazon basin. And, like literally 1,000 liters of water per tree. Imagine that is incredible geysers that are, um, basically just giving us they are the life force of the planet, and that's what we need to be connecting to.
Yeah, I heard this beautiful story about the Samana tree. You know, the Samana tree is like the kind of emblematic tree of the Amazon with the big roots that you could pretty much live in, and really towers up above the canopy. And it's a very sacred tree down there to the different peoples. Everybody really honors this tree. And I heard it has a root that goes all the way down until it touches a rock. And then it brings up the minerals and the water up from that mother root, up through the trunk and up through the leaves. And it transpires and it brings so much water into the atmosphere, but also it releases its pheromones into the atmosphere. And those pheromones are what also help it rain. And so it really struck me as like this act of like sweet lovemaking from the Samana tree to the sky, and this sort of abundant act of love. The sacred act of love that brings the rain. It just really struck me as the hormones. It's not just it's not just the trees, it's what trees as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally the pixie dust from the flowering, the fragrance, the aerosol fragrance from the flowering trees is what tickle the clouds so that water molecules form around those fragrant aerosol particles. And so, yeah, pixie dust tickles the rain in the sky, and then they're floating. Kind of like the avatar tree, the home tree, right?
Yeah, like the home tree, exactly. So I'm actually going to be in the next 4 sequels of Avatar. And one of the things that really fascinates me about that story, and that really made me fall in love with Pandora and the Navi and Jim Cameron and like the whole world that they created, is that it was a world. More people have seen that film than any other film ever. And I think it's because it's an opportunity for everybody to dive in and be free to fall in love with nature. It's like the blue people and their environment and this beautiful planet. It's so beautiful, and you feel how real it is for the connections and the sense of beauty and reciprocity and togetherness that there is. And so when the extractivist, technocratic, warmongering psychopaths land and want to like take everything and kill the native people from there, everyone in the audience is rooting for the blue people, and everyone in the audience is blue. Like when they're flying in the dragons and doing the thing and the dances and the music and everything, is everyone in the audience is blue. And it really rung home to me that we all have that inside of us, that knowing of like relationship and that knowing of relatedness that we have. And we know that extracting is like insanity, but it's somehow we've forgotten how to relate. And there's a sentence that you say that I love, which is kinship ecology. And I would just love it if you could talk a little bit about that, because I love it.
Well, first, Una, I'm a huge fan of Avatar, and I'm so excited for the new ones and that you're in it. It's amazing. As you know, I ended up traveling with James Cameron to the Amazon a few times with the Brazilian Amazon, where we explored the parallels after the movie came out between what was happening in the movie and what was actually happening on the ground, where we were there fighting this one of the largest dams ever built in the Shibu River, and we helped create a little film with James Cameron called Message from Pandora, which is on some of the Avatar DVDs, and it really tells the story of the parallels between what's happening in Avatar and what's happening in real life. So really close to my heart. And yeah, kinship ecology. I mean, the fact is that indigenous peoples' territories worldwide uh, represent, contain 82% of all biodiversity. So all plants and animals still exist, all types of different plants and animals species that exist on planet Earth occur in indigenous territories. And indigenous peoples currently make up about 4% of the world's population. Their territories also end up containing something like 60% of the world's forest. So one asks, well, what is it about indigenous worldviews and indigenous way of being that leads to the flourishing of life? It leads to biodiversity flourishing. And you yourself, being of indigenous roots, can relate to this. But anthropology is a fancy word of kinship ecology is exactly that. Indigenous people see themselves as related to and a part of their nature that surrounds them. They are related to the rivers. They are born from the forest. They see the forest as living, and ultimately all life, whether birds, animals, or whatever kind of plants, are relative. And so we could see if you treat the land as your mother, and you treat all living creatures as your relative, there's a way that you are connected to the survival and committed in kinship to the survival. And that's what we get. We get that kind of result. That something like the most biodiverse places on planet Earth are also the most culturally diverse places on planet Earth, as defined by indigenous languages. And so, yeah, I really feel that that's it's the paradigm, the way we see the world, that needs to change. And should we see the world from that perspective that we are, life forms embedded in larger communities of life in a living planet, then we can, from that perspective, we can cultivate an understanding of our, a common fate, a common, common path, a shared path for continuing of life.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the things that really fascinates me about this work, So as you said, my grandmother was Mapuche from the south of Chile. And, I guess by some standards, by some quantifying standards, that qualifies me as being an indigenous woman. And I don't see it that way. I don't see that it's a race thing. It's, people talk about indigenous peoples as if indigenous peoples are one thing. It's like, no, it's not a brown thing. It's not, it's a thing of a place. It's being of a place. And the languages emerge with the sound of the birds, the way that the rain hits on that leaf over there, that's the leaf that is used for the rooftops, the way that, the potato flowers in that particular time of year where this other thing is happening. It's like all of these things are happening. That's what creates the culture. It's not, people aren't just making it up. It's actually being in a place. And so for me, my journey, so Ba Foundation works with over 50 elders from different indigenous communities, traditional elders, spiritual guides, spiritual leaders from all over the world, from Burkina Faso, working with people in New Zealand, working with people, but primarily in the Amazon. And that's taken me to a place of like really wanting to understand what it means to be indigenous for me. And so through them, I connected with my roots in Chile. And then I went back to Chile and I met all sorts of people, Mapuche. Like I didn't know anyone at all because my father had to leave. But um, I was like, what does it mean to be Mapuche? What does it mean to be Mapuche? Mapu, that word is earth. Che is person. So it's just a person of the earth. And so many times, I'm sure you've encountered this in your work, it's like the people are either the first people, the true people of the earth, or the people of a particular animal. Like it's not, you're not like waving some flag around, like you're a part of this system and you have a role within it, right? Um, and so it's so important to learn from these guys, to learn from the cultures, to remember how to do that ourselves. There's a couple of elders down there right now because I got some relatives down there in Tarawaca who are really suffering from the most horrendous floods. I mean, and I asked, some of the guys, I was like, what is this normal? Like, is this what have you guys done in the past to do this? Because how do you survive if this is constantly happening? And they were like, no, before you could time the rain. It was like clockwork because it's a system. The Amazon is a living legacy. It's a system that was really in balance with, the flying rivers that you mentioned and things. And now because of deforestation and all of these, the psychopathic nature of empire, right? It's throwing the system out of balance. Have you got any kind of words to say about that, about like how you've seen the change? Because you've been doing this work for 25 years. Is it now Amazon Watch?
Yes.
25-year anniversary. That's amazing. Congratulations. Um, and yeah, I would just love to get a sense of how you've seen it change and where you see us going from here.
Yeah, so 25-year anniversary of Amazon Watch last week, and I was reflecting on my first visit to the Amazon was actually 30 years ago, and there was such clear rainy season and dry season and patterns that were fairly regular when I first started going there. And now, in the last several years, in the last year, we've seen some of the worst floods in 100 years, according to the indigenous peoples that I work with that Amazon Watch is working with. We've seen some of the worst floods and what is 100-year worst case flood. And part of that has to do with climate change. We have already warmed up the world, our Earth's temperature by 1.1 degrees. And people think climate change is something that's going to happen in the future, but global warming has already happened. We're 1.1 degrees into a warmer planet. The Amazon, remember I mentioned that the trees in the Amazon are key to that hydrological cycle, to that water cycle where it rains, trees evapotranspire, which is like they sweat out the water. The moisture reaches into the sky, collects with all the other trees and geysers from all the other trees and forms these atmospheric rivers that bring rain across the continent all the way to the southern cold zone, then also across to the Andes and northbound. So those flying rivers are dependent on forest cover, healthy forest cover. We are, I'm part of also a science panel for the Amazon. It's a group of 170 scientists that have come together, convened by the UN to help determine, it's a definitive report on the state of the Amazon. And a lot of those Earth system scientists, like Carlos Nobre in Brazil, we talk about how the forest is basically, the flying rivers are either going off track or they're being interrupted because of deforestation. So the science is that something around 25%, when 25% of the forest cover is lost, that circulating system starts to diminish. And over time, over maybe the next 50 to 100 years, we would see the forest no longer able to generate enough rain to sustain itself. So gradually goes from being a forest to fragmented forest of savanna. And we're seeing that process. We're in the precipice of that process. The Amazon has already lost about 20%. Actually, it's lost 18% of its forest cover completely. And another 20% has been degraded uh, to where parts of the forest are cut and not all the trees. So between what's been degraded and what's being fully deforested, we're at reaching that tipping point of the unraveling of the hydrological cycle where we're going to see savannahization over the next 30 to 100 years. But we don't know if we've crossed that threshold last year or we're going to cross it in the next 3 to 10 years. But we know we're right there. We're very close. In some of southern Brazil, we have already seen the tipping point at work in the southern region of the Amazon in Brazil, and the fact that what used to be a 10-year cycle of El Nino and La Nina, the oscillating uh, currents of wet year and dry year, we're now seeing those every other year. And the severity of those weather systems are also worse than they were before. So what we have is feedback loops, these positive feedback loops, climate change worsening, the drying of the forest, deforestation interrupting the hydrological cycle. And so this combination of, warmer weather and more fragile hydrological systems is pushing the whole, causing these really massive dramatic weather events, which cause huge damage. And also we are at the loss. This is something that underscores the other thing about the Amazon is that it's a giant, sucks in CO2 and breathes out oxygen. That giant carbon stores carbon in its soil and its trees. Every tree is like half carbon, and so when those trees are dying or dead, like we've seen last year, we lost an area the size of New Jersey in Brazilian Amazon alone. We lost New Jersey size area of the Amazon rainforest. And what we're seeing is that those cycles, those hydrological cycles and the worsening forest fires are really the big question around the climate. If we want to meet the Paris Climate Agreement goals, or if we want to have a livable world, if we want to have, a vital organ of the Earth's system function, we have to protect the Amazon. In fact, there's no way we're going to have a stable climate without protecting the Amazon. And certainly having the Amazon reach a tipping point is going to the wrong direction. We need to really stop at the precipice of collapse of the hydrological system. We have to protect every acre of forest that remains, every tree that remains, and we have to basically start to restore forests. We have to do massive restoration to bring back the forest, to connect the forest, to bring it to a level where it's at least 80% forest cover, healthy forest cover. And anyway, so that's the work. And, and I'll just say back to the indigenous peoples, you talk so beautifully about the belonging, the sense of indigenous peoples are indigenous in part because they co-evolved with that landscape and their commitment to
Exactly.
it is
They became
beautiful.
a part of it. We become a part of it. We pay attention,
Yeah,
right? It's our job to do that as human beings. People talk about rewilding. It's rewilding ourselves. We've got to rewild in here because everything in the wilderness has a purpose. Nothing is willy-nilly. Everything is fulfilling a function. And we have that very, very sacred role here. And sacred, not because it's, we need to wear robes and have halos. Sacred because it's about life. It's about life giving life to life. And that is a mystery. We can kill someone pretty easily, but it's very, very difficult to give life back. And that's the bit that it's like, I feel the same about the forest. You talk about these things, the elders down there, the guys that we work with, they talk about the trees that used to live for 200 years. They now live until 60, 80 years. And they know this because these guys, as you say, they've been there for a while. And so they know the stories. And so they know that that tree was there. My great, 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 great grandfather planted that one. or sat there and got initiated there. And they know the stories of the place. So they know how old the trees are. And the trees are dying younger and younger and younger. The trees that used to live 80 years, they now like 30, 40 years. And it's like the silent massacre of the rainforest. It's not just like the, the horrendous sound of the chainsaw. It's also like life not giving life to life, life coming in and taking it out. Yeah, when I think about it like that, it's like, what do you think? I mean, how I feel like for me, a cultural revolution is really where it's at, But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts and like what's like a good plan of action, like a good way forward.
Well, I mean, I think that for Amazon Watch and the initiative I'm working on called the Sacred Headwaters Initiative, Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative, where we're working with indigenous nations to protect millions of acres of rainforest, we see that a third of the Amazon is indigenous lands. And often those lands have lower deforestation rates than the nearby parks. That indigenous peoples care and their aspiration truly, I sit around fire a lot and hear this a lot when I'm down there, that their aspirations to be good ancestors. So partly, we listen to them, allow them to lead us. I often, get to speak to funders and donors and governments and activists, and when they say, what is it that we need to do? I said, first and foremost, we need to support the indigenous peoples who are already have demonstrated for thousands of years that they are stewards of this land. We need to support them in monitoring their territories, getting land recognition, getting forests to become legally recognized as indigenous territories, helping them monitor legal activities, whether it's through satellite imagery or other types of monitoring systems, help them have resources to be uh, guardians of their forest, like park guards that are indigenous peoples themselves, help them transmit their traditional knowledge and actually, document and transmit their traditional knowledge. Most indigenous men or women, by the time in their 40s or 50s, will take me on a walk in the forest, and you've done this as well, with the BOA Foundation. You've seen these folks know, like, they might know 400 plants,
Yeah.
500 plants, and they know how to use them. This is for houses, this one's for canoes, you know, and then some of the shamans and the medicine men might know 1,000 plants or more. That is incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom that we need to protect biodiversity, protect forests. The other thing I love about indigenous way of being and seeing is that it's very holistic. They're very much hard to silo into one place, So the experience has been do-gooders come from the outside and say, we need you to help you do a reforestation plan, and we need you to do a health plan. How about an education plan? They're like, no, no, no. We don't think silos. We think holistically. We want a life plan that puts life at the center of what we do and sees the relationship between all of those things, not necessarily separate. So that there's a program that's really about women's empowerment and maternal health and bringing back medicinal plants and all of these things all at once. It's not just one silo. And I think that wisdom is really missing in our environmental and human rights work. Sometimes we get too siloed, and what we
Yeah.
need to do is we need
The
to like,
reductionist.
yeah, exactly, to
Yeah.
see life, to see the forest as a whole, to see this idea that life is collaborating. And the other thing that's really fascinating about our indigenous I would say, wisdom, guardians and wisdom keepers, because they are kind of holding the beacon, saying, "Here, you want a sustainable life, that has staying power on this planet. Look at this worldview. Look at these wisdom. Look at this wisdom." And one of the things that they say is that, I sometimes bring groups of activists to sit with them in the forest, and they say, first and foremost, um, think collectively think collectively. We're in a Western world. We think about me and my career or my success or maybe we think a little bit about our family's success, our family's well-being. but indigenous peoples are very communal. They do things as communities, and I think that's the other part of this is how do we create collaboration across silos in communities that are really trying to create coherence. This idea of nature is coherent. It's like there's not as much there's coherence, and that's also ultimately the other thing that indigenous peoples talk about is buen vivir. This idea that comes actually from
Good life. Yeah.
the well-being, focus on well-being, and I was sitting with one of the elders, and I was like, "What is it really? What is well-being? What is buen vivir? What does it really mean?" And he basically said it's fractal. In a way, he didn't use that word, but he basically said it's fractal. There's well-being at the level of my family. There's harmony, and then have families in harmony with other families. Bunch of families make a village. There's harmony within the village, within the village and the forest that surrounds the village, and then on to all the way to the state and the nation state. And so to them, literally, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. It's like really the concept of finding harmony in really where the interests of everybody is considered, the well-being of everyone is considered.
Yeah, absolutely. There's what that word community, there's something, you hear it so much now. People say like online community and the discussion community and this community and that community. And for me, it's so insulting because there's a difference between community and network. Community, members of a community depend on each other. You depend on each other. You can count on one another. Members of a network, you're just like, oh, we're kind of interested in the same things. And, but if you disappear, I won't really notice. Or I might think about it for a second, but not my world won't fall apart. And I think that's one thing about the sense of community with the indigenous people, the people that I've been learning from, is that it's not about the human community alone, even. It's the whole, the whole, as you say, it's like fractals upon fractals. One of our indigenous director, Venki Piako, who you've met, he's just such a dude. He says, you wanna help? You wanna help here? Go plant a tree in your backyard. Where's your forest?
Yeah.
Where's your forest there? And there's there's wisdom in that in so many different layers. But I think that for me, the main thing that comes to mind right now is just that the interconnectedness of it. Because if we care, you can't care about something you don't know anything about. And so how do you care about the Amazon if you don't know anything about it? But if you know something about nature and the nature of things and the nature of community and the community of nature, then you can begin to care about the Amazon and what that means, not just for the survival of our species, but the stories that connect us to right back to the beginning of time. Those stories that are that have this inherent wisdom in them that we've neglected to uphold, like reciprocity. This idea of reciprocity, is so lacking in our culture. Honor, dignity, these things, and that across the board in so many different indigenous cultures that we work with at BOA is like, you see these principles, these values, these tenets that are there because they are natural, because they are lawful, not, oh, let me just go buy this and not really think about what is, going to happen in somewhere else where this was made or whatever, There's something also, this word that keeps ringing in my ears, the sense of belonging. It's something that I've been longing for because I've moved around so much and, really yearning to belong to a place, to really have relationship with place, with people, with community like that. And this idea of belonging to a place as opposed to a place belonging to you. And, it kind of befuddles me that a culture that would allow Bill Gates to become the primary farmland owner of this country can begin to conceive about how you can care and belong to and be with that amount of land, like hundreds of thousands of acres. It's psychotic. It's entirely psychotic. Whereas, people that know how to take care of and belong to in that way of reciprocity, it's that, that thing you said, kinship ecology, one of my mentors and teachers and just amazing woman who's indigenous in her own way, culturally indigenous, called Cassandra Ferreira, who works with Pachamama Alliance a lot. And she talks about this kind of this thread from ownership to stewardship to relationship, or ownership to relationship to stewardship to kinship, and getting back to that place of kinship. And so, yeah, I think that we have lots to learn, and the teachers from the forest, they want to teach. They don't want us to go over there and take their culture. That's different. But they want us to learn from them. And they want us to learn from them in a way that we can then walk in a good way over here, wherever we are, and plant trees in our own backyard and take care of our nature here, right? Has that been your experience as well? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I love the progression from ownership to kinship, and the steps along the way. And part of the Sacred Headwaters initiative that I'm a part of is fiscally sponsored by the Pachamama Alliance. I get to really work with children and twist a lot in Western Pachamama, Ecuador. And they're really amazing, amazing group of people doing incredible work. And they were part of a movement that included getting the Ecuadorian constitution to be revised to include a chapter on the rights of nature.
Yes.
It's also been the home for some of the work for the global alliance that we formed called the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, where we're basically helping the world adopt laws that see nature as entities, subjects of laws, not objects, but subjects. So a mountain will, or New Zealand gotten a river in New Zealand's gotten personhood, and a river in the Amazon has gotten personhood. Legally, courts have ruled that these entities are subjects of rights. So they have a right to exist, to maintain their vital cycles of life, to be free from harm, and to continue to perpetuate and regenerate. And that redefinition of nature as a subject instead of an object that can be owned or can be harmed or modified is a paradigm shifting, path to a more beautiful world we know is possible. And
Yeah.
so I'm one of the judges on an international tribunal. It's a citizens tribunal for the rights of nature, where we have been meeting during different climate events and listening to cases brought forth by communities on violations of rights of nature. And we've been adopting the principles of rights of nature law and the principles that are in the Constitution of Ecuador and also in the law, Mother Earth law in Bolivia, and attempting to enforce those laws through a citizens tribunal. And it's been amazing. It's been so powerful. It's such an aha thing to say nature has rights, whether it's a species like the turtle, or whether it's it's a mountain or a river or a forest. It has a right to exist, and I think that is part of that pathway of going from ownership to kinship, and empowering kind of a paradigm shift in it. But I
Yeah.
think what you talk about is a sense of belonging. We really see like the lessons indigenous peoples have for us in basically structuring the conversation around a worldview shift, not
Yeah.
just change the rules of the game or the laws, but a worldview shift, and that comes
Yeah.
from a deep place of connecting. within ourselves and within, and and that's the thing. It's like you've had this journey about whether the modern culture, the modern culture, commercials, whatever it is, have tried to create, instead of members of a web of life, we're now consumers, or we're employees, or we're, so it comes down to identity.
Yes,
Identity
absolutely.
to become people who
Yeah.
care, people who belong, people who see life. We have an economic system that's life blind. But what we want to do
The
is,
culture of death.
yeah, we want to create a culture that sees life, that's life centric, that's life honoring, life centric. And it sounds beautiful as words, but we actually have people who still live on this earth who practice that. And they also show us that actually by discovering those pathways, we become happier and healthier too, because health and well being is at the core of that buen vivir concept.
Yeah.
Healthy person, healthy forest, healthy community, healthy world. And
Yeah.
so, in the time of COVID, we really need to see planetary health and community health and collective well-being as the mantra that we reorient towards.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like how I feel it is like that moment where people finally had to admit to themselves that the earth went around the sun as opposed to the sun going around the earth. It's like that moment where it finally, that piece of information finally fit into people's brains. And they went, oh, right, I have to completely change. And it's that same, it's like, oh, the world revolves around humans. It's there for our taking. And into the place of like, oh, we have to re-engage in a whole different way that we know, that we know is right, that we know feels good. As you said, it makes you happier. You know, it's like I started, living off the land here, and it's bananas the amount of work that it takes, and it's such a humbling experience. I've never honestly prayed for crops before. I'm praying for crops because it's my lifeline right now, and I'm learning how to do it so that I can build good soil, so that I can do something good for the land here. And such a paradigm shift for me. Yeah, it's really, really, really powerful. And I was going to say something else, because you were talking about, oh damn, I forgot. Hang on a second. Oh, it's gone.
Well, bring it back when you think of it.
Yeah, I will. It was just something that you said that sparked off like a real big aha moment. And identity.
Identity.
Identity. Because the separation that we feel from nature is actually an identity crisis. It's like we've forgotten who we are. And somehow that make it all about us. And what our indigenous relatives down there, and up there, and all around, what they, if they still live in those traditional ways, they, as you say, they know which plant they can eat, which plant is good medicine for that, which plant they should definitely stay away from. And they can be sovereign and self-sustained. They can walk around the forest and know what's up. We can't do that. And if you plunk me in the middle of a mountain somewhere, I'd be like, oh boy, what now? I get eaten by a bear. But if you know how to do it, it gives you a sense of understanding who you are and being safe, and like being good in that way. It's amazing, because when you think about like, oh, the Amazon rainforest needs my help. And it's actually, no, we need each other, right? That we need the help of the Amazon and all of the wisdom that's still there.
So true.
And and they need our support, because if we don't stop with the psychosis that we support just by living through a day in, in the heart of the empire, it's like, that's the reality of it. Get a cup of coffee, we're affecting, down the line, who knows how. And we need one another. And so I really love this shift, and it's asking us all to be really brave right now. It's asking us all to be really brave, and really not the identity politics of it. It's not about identity politics. It's about remembering who you are in here, not about what other people can call you or not call you. It's this, who you are in here, and that is what is where it's connected to everything around. It's what they all say. It's what all of our elders say. And they want to share it, and they want to remind us how to access those muscles.
Right, exactly. And the identity, people ask me often, like, what is it I can do to protect the Amazon? And indigenous people say, a lot of my colleagues from Ecuador, like people like Domingo, who you've met, Domingo Peas, Atuar leader, who's part of the Sacred Headwaters Initiative, he says, we're here to tell you how the Amazon can save you.
Yeah.
Not how you can save the Amazon. I mean, obviously there's a reciprocity here. Both have to play our part. He says, we're here to tell you how the Amazon can save the world, basically. And we're the guardians of this heart of the world. So we're helping humanity, and we're not just doing it because we want to protect our territories. We're doing it truly because we care about the fate of the earth and all of our children. We're all in the same boat. He always says we're all in the same boat. I really think that you hit on something about identity. When people ask me, what is it I can do, I say there's so much you can do. But first, become that person who cares. Become that person who sees life and accepts the primacy of the web of life. That I am first and foremost a part of a living web. And everything from that place, I see the world. I walk in the world from that place. And that means then I see coherence. If I'm going to be life seeing and a person who is a productive cell in the living body of a living earth, of my host, the earth, then
Yes.
I not only work on keeping myself well and healthy as a cell, but I work on keeping the host healthy and well. So everything I do with my purchasing power, with my vote as a citizen, with my investments as a where I put my money in terms of my resources, and where I put my energy. What do I with my daily day-to-day hours of my work, my life's work? And what do I teach, and what do I represent, and who do I stand with? It's like it's a whole person, the whole person who cares. And I know most of the audience we're speaking to are already there. I know we're speaking to Emma's audience, which are mostly folks who care and wouldn't be tuning in if they didn't. So I know I'm speaking to the choir, but that that whole person, and the fact is that the organism, our host, is in crisis. The host is in crisis, and the host will probably survive, but we're not without a mass extinction of many species, including the human species. We're gonna need to rally. We're gonna need to basically be in emergency mode, looking for ways that we disrupt the current business as usual scenarios. And that requires taking our monies out of this, you know, basically life blind economy,
Yeah.
taking consumption habits, changing our consumption habits, changing our voting habits, really withdrawing from non cooperation, like Martin Luther King would say and Gandhi would say, non cooperation with the current system, and taking a stand, like the people are right now, Jane Fonda on the stopping the pipeline in line 3, that kind of action. Where
Right.
And the people I work with, they're also being chased down and gunned down. Just in the last 3 days, I received several terrible news of assassinations in Peru and Colombia and Ecuador. And it's also a regular thing in
Add
Brazil.
Brazil to that.
Yeah. And so,
To Brazil.
yeah, Brazil is constantly. it's actually hits the record on the number of assassinations. And those indigenous peoples are mostly the ones who are standing up to a big mine, or the loggers, or the illegal miners. And, and what is that for? It's for 1 out of 6 times you pump gas in your car, it's coming from the Ecuadorian Amazon, if you're in California or Western United States. Or it's from the gold, the gold that we buy for jewelry. Or it's for, the beef that is being sold right now at places like Costco. And we are literally need to with non-cooperate with those systems and then build something else. And the thing that we're building is based on nature's principles. Nature is actually, the web of life is incredible. It's like the best engineer, the best designer, the best artist,
Super efficient and beautiful. Yeah.
elegant, elegant and beautiful. Yeah, exactly, and efficient. So the way the way nature distributes rain through the landscape, the way butterflies' wings work, or the way that forests distribute um, through the mycorrhizal fungal network their nutrients to other trees, the ways that the trees talk to one another and share resources. That is I feel like all the answers are there in terms of what we need to do, but we do need organizing. We need to be organized and organizing in communities that care and who are
Yeah.
not cooperating and collaborating. And one of the ways that the Sacred Headwaters Initiative is doing this is through the bioregional vision for the region. The bioregional vision is basically looking at the bioregion as one living forest, one living entity, ecosystem. Upstream, downstream, everything's connected. What happens, the mine upstream or the dam downstream affects everything. So looking at the bioregion, saying, how does this bioregion, how do people thrive and the forest flourish in the same bioregion? And so what do we need to do to shift that? And how do we have a dashboard of metrics, of indicators, that instead of growth and jobs, we're seeking a metric that's about well-being, happiness, and the qualitative growth, how people's lives are better and how the forest is better. And truly, the body, all the lessons are in our own bodies, and all the lessons actually are in the forest. We just have to, um, you know, become students of biomimicry. And
Yeah, absolutely. It's that reorientation of like, who is your teacher? Where
yes,
are you? Where are you learning from? What are you learning? Where are you? Yeah, where are you seeing sense in life? Yeah.
well, actually, when we were doing the bioregional plan, we were looking for experts to support our bioregional planning process. And it was really hard because most schools, even universities, the best universities, aren't yet teaching this kind of holistic, living system, ecosystem perspective. They're teaching very much about urban planning, which is about growing the urban areas, or economic development, which is very much about job centric, one indicator focus. And so we need to revamp our educational system. And there's so much we could do.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm just looking at the time and really wanting to kind of help the audience and the people watching kind of plug in to wherever it is that feels good. Because ultimately, you kind of have no choice. You have to plug in somehow. But how you plug in, that's down to you. So
So
yeah, go on, go on.
I would just say this is a critical year for the Amazon and for the climate. So everybody's got to like dust off their whether it's just feeling despair or overwhelmed, dust that, take that off, and to really show up and say, what does a cell do in a body, in a living body? How does a cell support the host? And that means different things. But I do think that this is an important year because the climate convention, COP26, is meeting finally, going ahead and meeting, the big year for what we do with our climate ambition, how we ramp up our ambition to protect the climate. And the Amazon, as a part of that fight, is got to play a central role, like a leading character in the drama about the climate. And then also the biodiversity convention is meeting, and there's a debate about how much of nature we are going to commit. That 80% isn't just like put a fence around it and make it a park and keep out the humans. In the places like the Amazon, that 80% is about conviviality, people and forest.
Absolutely.
So those are two important moments. Biden's taking office. President Biden's being urged to take a serious action to protect the Amazon. And so we have a climate platform that's coming, that's called Amazon Climate Platform. People can log on and check it out. What we're calling the Biden administration to do. So there's that. And then obviously, Amazon watches tons of resources about where you should take out your money, divesting from companies that are funding rainforest destruction, supporting indigenous people's frontline campaigns. And then, of course, my work with Sacred Headwaters, I would say visit sacredheadwaters.org and learn about the declaration, the vision for the future permanent protection of this important biodiversity region. And it's an indigenous vision, so you can be inspired by it and actually so, there's so much information. Obviously, donate to groups like Goa Foundation, Amazon Watch, follow us on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I admire like that big, that kind of like big energy, big movement, government level kind of place that you're at. For me, it's like that place is so far away from my reality. And so for where I can plug people in and help people kind of tune into a little bit more of like that personal journey of personal transformation in order to become that person that cares and that knows how to care, not just cares and fumbles around, but actually is beginning to remember how to care. And we have this amazing platform called aniwa.co, where we have all of our elders that bring wisdom and bring offer up some of their cultures, and we have the Mamos from the Sierra de Santa Marta. We have Hunikuin, Yawanawa. We have the Dogon. We have some Maori elders. We have a whole a beautifully diverse cultural landscape for people to figure out a way to pray and to remember those stories. And we do everything from like dream workshops to music sharings. So it's this amazing way as well to be able to receive that blessing of remembering, of kind of learning how to walk a little bit with a little bit more light in your step around this world. And of course the Boa Foundation, the Amazon oh my gosh, Amazon Watch, the Sacred Headwaters Initiative, I think, is probably the most important project in the world right now, is how I see it. And yeah, and planting a garden, planting a tree in your backyard, helping out your neighbor that needs some help, hugging each other at this very dangerous time. Hugging a tree, hug a tree, feel it, try it. I don't know, see what happens.
Well,
But
I love how you say that too, because it is that personal transformation and getting those new worldview, kind of practicing that new worldview that helps guide us. And Manari, who one of my dear friends and colleagues from the Zapara people in Ecuador and Amazon, always says, it's about changing the dream, right? It's about listening to our dreams and changing the dream of the modern world, which I would also say Pachamama Alliance has a great online resources. You could take the workshop called Awakening the Dreamer. It's really
so great.
workshop, and also Change Maker Intensive, which is a multi-week webinar that really takes you through this idea of how we create systemic change together. Anyway, those are some resources to share with you.
So hopefully our EMA team will put all of those links down below, and you can just follow off and surf your way into a really deep and meaningful connection with nature and with the Amazon rainforest in particular today, because that's our biggest teacher, I think.
And lastly, I would say, Una, you as an artist are a great example for artists, people, influencers in Hollywood, of a celebrity who is, walking their talk and also lending their name, lending their voice, and their influence to moving the industry higher, elevating them higher in the public visibility, helping amplify the voices of those that need to be amplified. So I praise you and really thank you and honor you. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I would say that if there are artists listening who are members of EMA, who are join EMA, that's a great place, and also join Artists for Amazonia. Artists for Amazonia is mobilizing artists to aggregate their voices and to help lift up this emergency call for action. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you and thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you, Atossa, for these 25 plus years and for being such a teacher and a student and a light in this work. It's just, I'm so honored to be able to talk with you, and I so enjoy our chats, and I feel like I really trust your work and trust the people that you work with. You know, Domingo and Manari. I mean, my goodness gracious me, those guys are real deal, and it's really good because they're good human beings. And so thank you for building those relationships of trust and caring for the forest in the way that you do too. All right, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And plug in. You don't have a choice. You have to. And not doing so is just a waste. So just go to the links that are below and surf away.